Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we've got obviously our good friend of the podcast, Cliff Gray. We've had him on several times. FlatTopsWildernessGuides.com. Cliff, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on again, Jay.
Yeah, it sounds like I had a bunch of buddies that hunted Colorado this year, and I was watching on Instagram and Facebook and some of the different things, and sounds like just across the board, Colorado, mild temperatures. I couldn't believe it half the time. Times when I'd normally see pictures of yours, and there's 16, 18 inches of snow on the ground. It was like you guys were in t-shirts.
Yeah, and it's actually funny in the world of Facebook now. I'm sure you notice it. You get like these last year pictures sometimes, like they put up like a memory
Yeah,
thing, like their little
yeah.
automated deal. And so you get a lot of that like during those times, and it's like the same thing. Even from my perspective, I'd get on there and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's November 10th last year. We were in 3 feet of snow and it was abysmal and it was negative 10 degrees. And then now we had nothing.
Yeah.
It was really mysterious that way. Both on and it's funny because you're talking relative to what historically is mild winters. The last couple of years have been mild too, but this year was borderline ridiculous. Both on snow and temperatures.
For sure, and for those listening that haven't heard the episodes that Cliff has been on, I encourage you to go back and check those out. But Cliff owns and operates Flat Tops Wilderness Guides, rough area for those that are familiar with Colorado, or it's kind of out of Glenwood Springs, kind of between there and if you're just looking at big picture, kind of between there and Eagle, Colorado on the north side of I-70. And Cliff's got a big outfitting concession there where he hunts deer, elk. He does a little moonlighting for mountain goats, not in his area, but around there in the state, and some bighorn sheep. Cliff, the last time we talked, I think we were kind of talking about, first, second, third, fourth seasons and kind of what people could expect. And you've already alluded to, the temperature and, the amount of lack of snow. In general, for those listening, I mean, what does that cause when it's too warm? Is it an animal movement thing? The migration patterns. Why does it make it for tough hunting?
I would say like the easiest way I would put it is they have the upper hand in those set of conditions, because you're talking about like you have this, our country, and this goes for the vast majority of Colorado, where we're talking about these western species that live in huge summer ranges, and then weather, temperatures, feed, and all that gets them concentrated during the hunting season, hopefully at some point during that time. So if you don't have cold weather where they need to seek a lot of feed, and you don't have snowpack that basically closes off all the feed up high and also just makes their mobility hard, you're hunting them in 10 times the area, whereas in a normal year you might be hunting the same number of animals in one-tenth of that area. So they have the upper hand, and then I think particularly on the temperature end, and it's correlated to snow, obviously, is that they just want, particularly once they get pressured, they change their habits in a way, particularly the elk. I'd say the elk are, like, if you look at this year in Colorado, I don't know a single outfitter that'll tell you that it was even a halfway decent year, and that's from southern Colorado all the way up here and everywhere else. And that's because the elk in particular, if they don't have to get up out and about, that timber is just really, really hard to hunt. I mean, even during first season, second season, third season, I was glassing elk up in the darkest, timber laying in snowbanks all the way into November 10th, 12th, 15th. And that's pretty unusual. At that time, once you get into mid-November, elk should, you should be catching elk you should be glassing them up on south-facing slopes. So it was different in that regard, and in the end, they just have the upper hand in those conditions.
Yeah, I mean, almost any animal that you hunt when you're dealing with, animals that are spread out. Here in Arizona, the Arizona Strip and some of our elk, early season elk hunts and stuff, when we get kind of widespread rains, we talk about how it spreads everything out. And, in your concession, your outfitting concession, I mean, you're hunting a huge area, and when those animals are spread throughout that whole area because they haven't been forced down due to snow. I mean, it kind of, it almost makes you think like you have way less elk. You don't in any way think you had less elk. You just think they're spread out and harder to see.
Yeah, no, I think like relative to the last couple of years, population-wise, they're about the same. I kind of watch them in the summer. When they're in the summer, they'll get up. Way before archery season, they'll get up in these big open spots, and you can see where cows are calving and stuff. So you get an idea, like year to year, the population. I don't think it's much of that. I mean, there might be a little bit of that. I mean, if you were talking like over the last decade, I'd say yeah, there's less elk. There's no doubt. But if you're talking just year to year, no, it's just conditions. It's the elk in particular. They use that stuff to their advantage, and you just get huge swings in your hunting because of it. In some ways, I guess you can reflect on it, and I actually have noticed this a little bit given the last 2 years of mild weather. We don't have a lot more elk, but we're killing bigger elk. For us, that doesn't mean huge, massive bulls, but instead of, there's no doubt that we're killing bigger elk, and that's because not as many are getting killed in these mild winters. You know what I mean? So, or these mild falls. So that's kind of a nice upswing, and hopefully you've got a huge amount of elk bulls that instead of getting shot when they're 3.5, they're going to be 4.5 next year. And so I try to look at it from that perspective, if that makes sense.
So in other words, what I hear you saying is there's realistically, like next year, a chance that there's been a couple of, handfuls of holdover bulls that have made it through the last couple mild falls, and potentially if everything lined up correctly next year and you had good snows and you had elk congregating, you're saying that you could potentially even shoot some bigger bulls because there's some age on them.
Yeah, and that's obviously like the half glass full type of perspective on it, but it is a reality. For us, when you get into these good conditions, and once the bulls after the rut and these rifle seasons, they get back together in bachelor groups, and it's nothing for us to go into an area and kill a whole group of bachelor. We'll kill every single one. 4, 5, 6 bulls in a drainage in the right conditions. Well, we didn't do much of that this year. So those 4, 5, 6 bulls that were the same age class, 3.5, 4.5, 60, 70% of them at least, in particularly what this winter's shaping up to be, are going to be alive next year. So that's that. I mean, I think that's the right way to look at it.
Your buck hunting, I know on several of the podcasts we talked about the buck hunting, and you actually had some new hunts that kind of opened up, if I remember right, the early season hunt, and then the fourth season deer hunts. I think we were talking about those dates were about as late as they always are. Let's talk about the fourth season, even the third and fourth season deer hunts first. Were those deer also really spread out and didn't get forced down, maybe into the lower elevations like they normally do? And did the rut ever really kick off, or just was it so mild that they're probably going crazy right now?
Yeah, I'd say like right now they're starting to, at least in my local area here, they're starting to tail off a little bit. I've noticed that we've been lion hunting a little bit, and a lot of times you get into these areas where you're seeing them push down on these sage flats and stuff where they get pretty concentrated, and you can kind of watch the rutting activity. So it's starting to tail off a little bit. It's probably it's well peaked and all that. But I would say in terms of rutting activity, it was spot on. I mean, we killed bucks third season that were that were for sure like into it. They weren't all thickened up in like the peak of it, but they were chasing does. Fourth season, same thing. All the bucks we saw were chasing does. So I think like the timing was pretty spot on. I mean, you were hunting deer in the rut. There's no doubt about it. I'd say we ran into kind of the same deal though, with just the density of them being spread out. And I noticed like, what a lot of guys, particularly non-residents in, I think like the whole hunting community that has much like marketing exposure or whatever, what we don't talk about is there's these guys in these local areas, like there's guys that live by me that kill big bucks every year. Nobody knows about them. They have, got normal jobs, they do their thing. And I mean, I always chat with those guys and I'm good buddies with them, and very few of those guys killed big deer this year. And so to me, that's the big indicator, right? And we saw, our 4 season hunts were good. Our guys saw bucks. They killed deer. It was all good. We didn't kill the like quality of deer that I would have loved to see. But it was just lower density, and it was, areas where you typically go in and you'd see, it'd be nothing to see 50, 60 does. You might go in there and see 5, 10. So just the general density of deer was down, and the same thing, just spread out, And there might be a little bit, I mean, it's all anecdotal, but I think there might be, in our deer, there might be more of a population year to year. It did seem to me that even early I didn't see the numbers that I typically do, but it's hard for me to make that judgment just based on, anecdotal evidence.
With the mild fall you had, were you still seeing bears pretty late? Did you see quite a few bears this year?
Yeah, we killed quite a few bears. It's the same deal. I mean, it's like the thing that everybody in Colorado doesn't seem to want to talk about a whole lot, but there's an abundance of bears everywhere. And I think Fish and Game has started to notice that it's problematic. There's a bunch of good research actually by a couple of people that are doing PhD projects and stuff on it that are recognizing the predation from bears, particularly on elk calves, is pretty absurd. So who knows? But we see high numbers around my house. It's somewhat ridiculous, to be honest with you. I mean, anytime, like I could do a spot and stock bear hunt. There's not a huge demand for them, but I could do a spot and stock bear hunt, which is the only thing we can do in the fall for 4 or 5 days. And I would say that that's going to be 100% opportunity. I couldn't guarantee the hunt, but like that's the type of situation the bear hunting's in. And that's pretty nuts. Like that'd be this is the first time the bears have been like that in my lifetime. When I was a kid in Colorado, you never saw a bear, or it was like a really weird thing to just see one walking around.
So are those hunts that guys can buy over the counter and just go hunt? You can.
Yeah, you have to draw. So there's a rifle season from September 2nd through September 30th, and those are big quotas for bears. All you got, basically you're going to draw the tag, but you do have to go through the draw.
What about spring bear? Do they have spring bear hunts?
Nope. So it's illegal in Colorado. And that's kind of an unfortunate deal. It's kind of a misunderstood deal. It's
can you hunt bears with dogs in Colorado, or is that illegal too?
Nope. It's also illegal. So no dogs. Yeah. So you're pretty constrained, on actual controlling of their population. It's really, it's a frustrating thing, and I don't want to talk out of school because I'm not like an expert on it. But it's a hot topic politically. But unfortunately, like all these mountain towns, the Fish and Game guys are consumed by it, right? Because all the towns have to deal with these bears eating trash. They're all habituated to people. So the Fish and Game guys have to act like dog catchers. And I talk to these guys, and they're my friends. They hate it. That's not what they dreamt of when they were kids, and they wanted to be a Fish and Game guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they got better things to do. So it's just kind of an unfortunate thing. Maybe there's some hope that in Colorado, there's something changes, the spring bear season comes back or something like that. But I don't know the details.
So the guys, do you recommend your guys that are coming to hunt? I mean, do you recommend they also apply for bears so they have a bear tag, a deer tag, I mean, an elk tag in their pocket?
Yeah, particularly my archers. I love for them even because it's a rifle tag too. So even if I'm packing in drop camp archers, if one of them wants to draw that rifle tag, I encourage them to, and then we just pack a gun in, and they can go bear hunting in the afternoon or whatever, and take a little break from bow hunting elk or whatever. And I've kind of in 2017 we haven't really talked about it, but I'd like to get some guys to do a longer combination guided hunt, bear, muleys, and elk, because my area is like one of the few areas with high probability a guy can draw all three tags.
And you've already guaranteed the hunter a bear, so, right? Didn't
I? Well, no, I shouldn't have said that. I already feel it biting me in the butt. But I would say that it's like high probability. I just use it as an example of like it's a good way to explain how many of them there are. You know what I mean, Jay?
Yeah. Like, I mean, is it feasible if you're out glassing, let's say for a 5-day hunt or whatever? I mean, will you see one a day? Pretty likely you'll see 5 bears in 5 days, or will it be more than that?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good. That'd be a pretty darn good estimate. Like I'd say that'd be slightly on the conservative end, but that'd be a reasonable expectation.
Let's take a quick
and we don't.
here.
And I would say the one caveat is we don't kill like a bunch of massive bears. There have been some big ones killed, but they're no behemoths. And so, but they're readily available, and I'd say that's like a pretty good guess. If you hunt the true bear country here, you'll turn up a bear or two a day. That's a pretty good expectation.
Let's take a quick break here. GoHunt.com Insider is by far the most valuable tool a Western hunter could give themselves. GoHunt.com Insider are the industry leaders and #1 source for Western hunting for a lot of reasons. GoHunt.com Insider have changed the game for how hunts and hunting information are found. Within a matter of minutes using Filtering 2.0, you'll be able to filter by state, species, residency, odds of drawing a tag, specific hunting dates, and harvest success percentages to find the hunts that fit exactly what you're looking for. If you are a guy that applies across the West or just in your home state but want to find some new opportunity, there's no better way to do it than using GoHunt.com Insider. As an exclusive offer to my listeners, if you sign up for a GoHunt.com Insider membership for $149 a year and use the promo code JScott at checkout, you'll receive a $50 KUIU gift card. Head on over to GoHunt.com/insider and get yourself the most valuable membership a hunter could have. Reel game calls featuring the elk reel. Reel Game Calls makes innovative, realistic, and easy-to-master calls using their proprietary, revolutionary design. They are located and manufactured in Gypsum, Colorado. Their calls were designed and battle-tested on some of the hardest hunted terrain on Earth. Check out elkreel.com. Use the promo code JScott and receive a 20% discount on all purchases. Go to www.elkreel.com. Yeah, I mean, I know myself from floating, I'm usually floating about 5 days a week in the summer, there on the Colorado or on the Roaring Fork or on the Eagle. And every year, the last couple of years, I'm seeing more and more bears right off the river. I used to never see them, and now I'm seeing, handfuls in a summer. And that tells me enough right there, because, I mean, you go from not seeing them at all, and now it seems like every year I'm seeing more and more and more bears. Yeah.
No, I think that's like the general trend. One thing else, I guess, the one caveat to say is like me and you were talking about like the same area. Glenwood Springs, Aspen, Vail, Eagle, Gypsum just kind of seems to have a little bit of an explosion going on. and every sow I see typically has at least a couple cubs, so they're doing good. And they're a funny species because not a lot of guys want to hunt them like every year. A lot of guys just want to hunt them once, and that's kind of the thing. They enjoy it, but they only want to hunt bears once. So it's kind of a different dynamic. And they're cool to watch. I mean, I'm sure you watch them from your boat. They're neat. They're a neat animal.
They are a neat animal. I'm looking at your Instagram account. For those listening, it's Cliff Gry. So you've obviously left the A out of there, but Cliff Gray without the A.
I skipped the vowel.
There was probably like 3,000 Cliff Grays, wasn't there?
No, there was. I think on my Facebook or something like that there was at one point, so I had to go with the non-vowel.
There's a photo of you riding horseback, and the color change of the leaves is unbelievable.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? I know the picture you're talking about. I mean, that day, it was one of those days, and if you've ever experienced it, like in the first snowfall that occurs whenever you got a lot of colors going, like all the aspens changing. I mean, it's beautiful, and it's a cool picture. It's actually one of my guides took it, but that day was like, the picture doesn't do it justice. It was like epic. And it was just one of those things where the colors just popped out like crazy. And we happened to be in a spot where we got a massive aspen grove and kind of that high alpine, like a little transition zone. But I know the exact picture you're talking about.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. What's this also on your, I meant to ask you about this before. It says professional wilderness outfitter and hunting guide, pilot and adventurer. You didn't tell me you're a pilot.
I haven't. I don't fly commercially. It's been. I don't fly as much as I'd like to, particularly now with kids and all the other expenses in life. But yeah, no, that's.
So when did you learn to fly?
I actually learned to fly before I had a driver's license. I got my pilot's license when I was 17.
Okay, now explain this to me. You're saying you learned how to, not learned how, but you flew planes and were certified to fly planes before you were certified to drive a car?
Yeah, and the only reason that is because I failed my driver's test twice when I was, because usually you're going to get your driver's license when you're 16, but I remember I got because you can't get a pilot's license until you're 17, and I don't know if that's changed or not, but that's how it was when I was a kid. So you can get it on your 17th birthday. So I had that all set up, and it would have been like every other kid. I would have had my driver's license way before that, but I failed the test twice, and then you have to wait like a month and a half in between. So it just worked out that way.
Okay,
it's not
so I got to dive into this. This is too good. Here's a Stanford graduate, right?
Yep.
Stanford graduate. And did you fail the written test or the driving? Because knowing you, a rancher's kid, you had to be driving at like 5 years old.
Yeah, no, I failed the driving part of it, and I think that was
too fast.
Yeah, no, what the issue was is maybe like a little bit lax on the city, like the city protocols. I remember exactly how I did it. It was that unprotected left turn. I always know what an unprotected left turn is because I failed doing the same thing twice. What it is, everybody does it, Jay. You know when you pull out, you're yielding oncoming traffic at a stoplight,
yeah,
and then it's coming, and then you try to sneak through there. Well, yeah. I tried to sneak through twice on 2 different driving tests, and it didn't. It doesn't go well.
Was this in California or in Colorado?
Yeah, those were in California.
Oh man! So here's this ranch kid that doesn't even use a turn signal, and wow. So you learned how to fly. So I want to hear about this. Did you fly Piper Cub? I mean, what were you flying? And
yeah, I flew for the most part. I flew a Piper quite a bit because I had my dad had a friend that had one. But for the most part, like a Cessna 172 is what I have most of my hours on.
And do you own a plane right now?
Nope, it's not in the outfitter budget.
Not in the outfitter budget.
But I have flown this area a couple of times with friends, and it's I haven't done a tremendous amount of mountain flying. It's fun area to fly. I don't know if you've flown much in small airplanes, but the mountain stuff is interesting.
So, like right now, I mean, are you certified? Like you legally could go and fly, or do you have to keep up on your hours, or what's the deal?
Yeah, so you always have the license, but you have some requirements, and then there's like additional requirements typically if you're renting other people's airplanes. So right now, for me to get back in, I have to do like my 2-year check ride. It's just a short test and get caught up. I've taken kind of sabbatical on it. Just to me, and I think a lot of guys would reflect this. If you're not flying small airplanes consistently, like 4 or 5, 10 hours a month, for your own safety, you're better off just taking a sabbatical. I mean, if that makes sense to you, you know what I mean. It's not something you want to get rusty at. So it's one of those things. And I'll get back into it at some point. I always thought it'd be a fun thing if I ever went to Canada, Yukon, stuff like that. And that was kind of always in the back of my mind when I did it as a kid. Is that you could kind of it'd be like another asset as a guide or whatever.
But like how many hours have you flown? I mean, do you have lots and lots of hours?
No, I don't. In like the spectrum of guys that fly, I don't have a whole lot. I think I've got like mid 300s.
Gotcha.
I got my license at you most guys get their license at like 50 or 60. So yeah, but it's more like a hobby thing. But I keep up on it. I follow a bunch of guys on Instagram that are kind of more bush pilot guys and stuff like that.
But if we pulled in if we were off somewhere and we pulled in and the guy like said, "Here, I want to show you something," and he comes and swings the barn door open and he's got a cub in there, are you telling me that you wouldn't just be eyeballing it, be like, "Let's fire this thing up and go for a little spin"?
Oh yeah, of course, of course. I mean, I would say I've done that before, but with you can get out of date on your hours and you can still fly with another guy that's up to date. So, yeah. There's no doubt. Particularly Cubs. I mean, if anybody's ever, have you ever been in one, Jay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're like flying in a tin can. I mean, but you can do some really cool things in one. You know what I mean? So that's like that thing's like an engineering marvel.
It kind of reminds me of a story of my cousin's husband. Was telling me a story about one time him and his buddy were building, and I want to say it was kind of like an ultralight type plane, like one of those jobs that you order like a kit.
Sure. Yeah.
He was telling me about it, and they were probably a 12-pack in or something. But he's like, so we'd been working on this sucker, getting it all put together, and we're talking about like two guys that literally have probably no business taking this thing for a flight. And he's like, "Oh yeah, we got it all put together," and we looked at each other and like, we're gonna fly this sucker. And they did it, and nobody died, but golly, I laughed so hard. Listening to him tell the story just cracked me up. So when I saw Pilot and Adventure, I just had to ask you about it.
Yeah, no, I got you for sure. But it's fun.
I noticed that the Gray family's going to have another edition.
Yeah, yep. I figure I've kind of got on a roll here, and I figure here in like roughly 20 years, it's going to be hard for me to keep up on all the guidance. So I'll have three new guides.
The prospects coming in.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to
somebody's got to do the work
from within. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Somebody's got to do the work. So I figure keep going on it. But yep, one more.
Yeah, one more on the way. Good. Do you know if it's boy or girl?
Nope, not yet. We don't know. It'll be a month or so before we know.
Gotcha. I think you had sent me a message. I had a question and answer, and I had someone asking me about wanting to be a guide, and I should have brought you in on the episode, but I'm going to bring you in now. It's one of those things. There's a lot of kids out there, young guys, and they want to be a guide, they want to be an outfitter, and they see all the pictures on Instagram and they think it's just you know everything's fun, and just wondering if you had any opinions on that.
No, I would say like any of the listeners that, because there's tons of people that same thing. I'm sure you get lots of young guys, and not necessarily just young guys, like a lot of guys that just want to live that dream. So they call, email, ask questions about it, and I would encourage any of them to go back and listen to that episode, because I was just I finally got off the mountain and stuff, so I was catching up on episodes, and I caught that one, and I thought, this is really useful and answers a lot of questions for those guys who get infatuated with the idea of being a guide or outfitter. You had some perspectives on there specific to Arizona, which you're totally right. Like the operating environments between the different states, Wyoming, Colorado, Arizona, all those, they all have very different kind of competitive environments, I would say. And then just how outfitting and guiding works, and then you got Canada, Alaska, and all of that, and that's another whole different spectrum. So there's a lot of differing things there. It depends on what you want to do, but in the end, I would encourage anybody to go back and listen, because I think you had some really good points. It actually gave me some answers. When young guys ask me like a good way to approach answering it, because you don't want to kill people's dreams. And I think you said maybe that during your discussion of it. But at the same time, you want people to be realistic about it. It's almost like you hit on, like, you need to go work for somebody and see if you want to do it first, because what guys realize is that guiding and then outfitting in particular. And in the end, if you're going to make a living at it, Jay, as you've pointed out, you're not going to be a guide. There's no such thing, and this is going to break some people's hearts, but there's no such thing as a professional hunting guide that has a long-term career doing it. There's a couple guys I can think about who are pretty close to that. Like one guy, I would say Brian Martin is pretty damn close to that. And you've had him on here, but there's very, very few guys, and he has if you ever have him on, you should ask him about the same thing, because I'm sure Brian would have a great perspective on it. But in the end, the population of guys that are truly hunting guides is really, really limited, and that's because the hunting business is not like, it doesn't have like huge financial rewards. So if you want to make a decent living at it, you're going to be an outfitter. You have to, right? You got to have guides working for you. You got to do all the administrative stuff, the booking and all that. So,
well, in your opinion, like, what is the difference between a guide and an outfitter for those out there listening? They may think it's one and the same.
Yeah, so a guide primarily, he guides hunters, right? And then does all the work in the camps, and is with the hunters, right? And so for the most part, like in Colorado, and I'm sure in Arizona, most guides are doing it on their vacation time, right? It's just something they enjoy hunting. They know the country that an outfitter has the permits on, and so they'll come guide for a week for me or whatever. They get paid a day rate. That's really what a guide is in my mind, right? And that extends to a lot of places. I mean, even the friends that I know in the Yukon, Alaska, a lot of those guides, I would say almost all of them, it's not their primary profession. And so when I say guide, I mean the guy that's actually hunting with clients, right? And then even within that world, not to get, this could probably blow up into like a 5-hour conversation, Jay, but even in that world, like really understanding what that guide does is really important. A guide is not a huge part of it is not hunting, right? And you hit on this too. A huge part of it is working with people, working with those constraints, and then learning how to keep people safe, planning, logistics, all of those things. And then, yeah, there's a small segment, not, like a third of the job is knowing how to harvest animals, right? In my opinion, that's probably what it about shakes down to.
Yeah.
And so that's really hard for young guys to palate. If you wanna go hunting, like you wanna maximize your hunting in life, these are both really poor choices. Does that make sense? That's and I say that in a way that not to be negative to people's dreams, because I have the passion for the hunting, but I also have the passion for the business, and it's kind of like a disease. It's an exciting business, right? It's really stressful. To me, I can't think of anything else that has the degree of logistics, the excitement, the happiness you bring to people. So all those things, I wouldn't trade that for anything. But it's not about hunting. It's like part of it is. But it's not all of it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You got to enjoy those other things. And you'll know if you do. If you go work for a guy, or a guy or gal outfitter for a couple of years, you'll know if you got the disease. I mean, it runs in my family. We're all stressed out. We have these kind of crazy businesses. My uncle's got a big fishing business, and he hates it, but in the end, he actually really likes it, because it's the only thing that can keep that excitement level up. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, is your uncle's business in Alaska or what?
No, it's actually in Mexico.
Oh, he does a charter business?
Yep, yeah, he's got a bunch of boats in San Jose del Cabo, and he's been down there for 25 years or so. It's like the same thing, it's like every outfitter who, even though they have a passion for this or fishing guide or whatever, once the season's over, we're all just pooped and exhausted, and we don't understand why we're doing it. And then it's only December 7th, and you already kind of get the excitement going again, right? Because it's like, what are you going to do next year? It's not normal. It's not normal. I mean, we may be all messed up in the head or something,
And this is coming from a guy, you graduated from Stanford. Now, that alone is a feat in itself. Then you you wore a suit, right, every day, and
yep.
You did the whole Wall Street thing and managed cajillion dollars. Your brother still does it, was on the Forbes magazine or some crazy thing, and you just walked away from all of that whole. Were you in New York or where were you?
Yeah, so we had an office in Dallas. And then I worked in San Francisco for a while too.
Okay, so you went from wearing a suit and the whole thing to being like, I'm going back. I'm going to be an outfitter. Right.
I think there's kind of two things to that. I think part of that is that I won't lie and say that there's not things I miss about that. There's some, but there's also some things in my career, in my normal career, that are kind of similar to outfitting. I worked in a high intensity, stressful type of gig, and so does my brother. And my brother, he came out and helped me guide people this year, and he's got a huge high pressured business, and it's just something he enjoyed, and he came out and he did it for a week. No cell phone for a week, and he kind of has that same passion for the excitement. So having said that, I'll say something that I think is really important, and I think you were kind of touched on it in your discussion, but I'll just say it outright, and that's that if you're going to go into this business, have some other way to make an income if it all falls apart. Because nobody can say, yeah, I'm going to go. I mean, there's different things. I mean, if your goals in life are different than mine, I have my family and all that is really important to me, and taking care of them, making sure they have certain things, that's important to me. And I'm already, I was already married when I got into this business and all that. So that's all really relevant. You know what I mean, Jay?
It's real, yeah.
Yeah. So I had the one thing for me that was important is that if this all blows up and falls apart, I can survive, right? And I think any guy who wants to do it, while he's guiding, when he's in college or he gets when he's young, he's 19, 20, he's guiding. In your off time, you should be learning some skill that can bail you out, because this business is not I sound like a old parent now that I'm saying this, but it's just true. You know what I mean? If you want to have any stability in life, you got to have like a little backup plan. Because then the other thing it lets you do is it lets you actually really take on this business and grow it, because it's okay to take a bunch of risk. You know what I mean? It's okay to do the adventurous, out-of-the-box things that other outfitters or other people who have adventure companies can't do, right? Because they're struggling to just pay their bills, or they can't take an extra risk because they're already in a pretty volatile, risky business.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, I think overall, you have to love it. If you're going to be good at being an outfitter or being a guide and doing it for a long period of time, you have to love it. I mean, if you start getting burnt out and you are burnt out, you will fizzle out. So, I mean, you have to find some way to rekindle that fire and keep it fresh. And it is a stressful situation. It is a stressful job because you've got a lot of people that are relying on you, and you want to make them happy. And
Right.
it's easy to burn out. So, for me, I think having those breaks and having the different seasons, and for me having the different animals, like move from sheep season, now I'm moving into coos deer season, and then there's a couple month break, and then it's turkey season, and then it's fishing season, and then it's elk season, and start it all over. That helps me. So I would say I agree with you. You put all your eggs in one basket, you absolutely have to go for it, and it has to work, or else you're going to be, you know, digging food out of a trash can.
Right.
But I mean, you have to love it, and
Oh
if you
yeah.
don't truly love it, you will not be a top outfitter.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And on the positive side, like what I always tell young guys that want to guide or whatever, particularly in the wilderness thing and all that, is that like a lot of different things like a young person can do, if you struggle through it, it's brutally hard work. And I think if you do a good job at it and you excel at it, even if it's something you only do for a couple of years, the guiding part of it, you'll come away with it with way more confidence, right? Because you've proven to yourself that it's a pretty big deal, for a guy to come up in one of my camps and guide for essentially 40 days straight, 3 hours from any running water or electricity. It's that's a pretty big deal. And if you can accomplish that, I mean, you can use it for whatever you're going to do in the future too. Makes you kind of you're more self-reliant. So that's like a huge positive. And then the other huge positive of it, and I'm sure you've experienced this, Jay, like on the different species, is like this. I don't want to sound like asinine when I say this, but it's kind of like, to me, if a guy came to you and said, "I've been doing karate for 20 years," right? You'd think the guy's pretty good at karate. But if then he told you, "Yeah, I've been doing it for 20 years, I do it for 5 days every year," right? You'd have like a totally different perspective on his knowledge base, what he really knows, and all that. The one thing that guiding gives the guys, and nobody can ever take it away from you, if you hunt elk or you hunt sheep or you hunt whatever for 30 days straight for 2-3 years, you got like a knowledge base that how else are you going to get it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You can only get it by doing it.
Yeah, there's just no way,
Yeah.
because it's like a huge chunk of time that you are focused on that species, and that's something that it's hard to buy. You know what I mean? Over even a lifetime. So those are like the positive part of it, I would say, because I don't want to. It's not all negative.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good.
Yeah. I've said before, it's fun for me. It's fun to get into the eat, sleep, and kill mode. And I always have hunters text me, eat, sleep, and kill. I haven't guided them in 7, 8, 10 years, and they'll all out of the blue eat, sleep, kill, and it's always fun to put everything aside and get in the mountains and just go into that mode for 10 days or 2 weeks or 7 days or whatever the hunt is, and just totally focus on what you're doing.
Sure.
That's always fun to just kind of zone out. And I'm sure your brother, with all the stress that he has going with his high profile job, it was probably just awesome to come for a week and hang out with you and hunt, go with the hunters and do the whole thing, and go back home, take a shower and put his suit back on, and go back and crush the world. But yeah, it's one of those things. You got to love it, and you got to spend a lot of time doing it. Let's take a quick break here. I have known the owners of the Outdoorsman's in Phoenix for over 20 years. They are the authority on optics and hunting gear. Outdoorsman's is the leading designer and manufacturer of high-quality tripods, mounting accessories, and pack systems for all hunters. Their customer service is the best in the business. Go to outdoorsmans.com or call 1-800-291-8065 and use the J. Scott promo code to receive 10% off any products. PhoneScope is a company that makes custom-molded, precisely engineered smartphone digiscoping adapters. Photographing wildlife has never been easier. It is simple to text photos and videos from your smartphone and share them with your friends. PhoneScope stands behind their product with a 100% money-back guarantee. Get yours now by using the JScott16 promo code and receive 10% discount on all purchases. Check them out at PhoneScope. That's PhoneSkope.com, or on Instagram at PhoneScope. All right, Cliff, I want to ask you about, you said you've been doing some mountain lion hunting. What is the status of mountain lion hunting in Colorado? And how has it been going for you lately? Have you guys caught any lions? How is it out there?
So in terms of the first part of your question, like the status on lions, I think one of the troubling stuff on all this predator stuff, bear, lion, everything, it's misunderstood, and so it's a political hot topic. I'm not the best to give you the details on where it's at politically. Other than I know it's threatened, right? Lion hunting in general is threatened, not just here, kind of everywhere. And it's an unfortunate deal. I would say, the thing about lions is people have no idea how many there are. Until there's actually two things that showed me how I realized that there's a lot more lions than I ever thought of, and that. I've lived in lion country my whole life, but these two things really did. Once I started hunting them, in the wintertime, you start, I saw you had a dryland guy on there, which is impressive. I've never hunted dryland, lions, so it's always been in the snow. So basically, just track-wise, you start to realize that there's a lot more lions around than you think. And then the second thing is actually putting binoculars on a tripod, because then you start glassing up lions. And so those two things, you start to realize that there's a lot more lions around than you think. In our area, I think it's absolutely, without a doubt, all the quotas in the surrounding units in my unit are way, way low. I know what they take off the Indian reservations sustainably, and it's fivefold what the Fish and Game is allowing. And I shouldn't say Fish and Game; it's somewhat politically constrained. So the quotas are what they are, and it's a hot topic, so it doesn't get messed with too much. In terms of how we've been doing, I don't outfit for them at all. It's just a personal thing with friends. But they're around. We've chased a couple. We got actually into a situation where dogs confused and everything, just in one area we had four lions, a mom with cubs, and then a tom. So we've been having fun. It's a fun hunt, Jay. I don't know if you've done it. It's a lot of guys just think it's guys just turning out dogs, and it's like this guys that don't appreciate the lions. It's an easy hunt, and it's like a brutal deal, and it's pretty far from the reality of it. And I even hear that sometimes from the hunting community, which is a bummer, because I think everybody should go give it a try and kind of see what's all involved. The dog part of it's really cool, and guys put a lot of time into their dogs. It's one of the few things with hunting, or one of the few hunts that exists that you don't have to kill it if it's not the right one or whatever. You usually get a really good look at it in the tree. Lots of lions get turned away, and it's about the chase, right? And I will say that if I take the spectrum of hunters that I know, the best ones are, a lot of them are lion guys. And that's a perspective of the hunting community for the most part doesn't have. But guys, these guys know how to track. They know behavior in a way on a species like that's much more in depth than most hunters. So I respect all that part of it. I wouldn't say I'm a lion expert at all, Jay, other than I enjoy doing it with friends that know a lot more than me.
Well, a lot of it too is they can kind of predict, they're out there. For one, every lion hunter I know is tough. They're tough guys.
Oh yeah.
I don't know a single sissy lion hunter. I mean, there may be some, but I don't know them. The ones I know are tough. And
oh yeah, sure.
And like you said, they are great hunters. They're very observant. I think that's one thing about lion hunters I know is they're very observant, and they pick up on things that even other good hunters that I know don't even notice. And in Colorado, so there's a quota. So like, when is the season? How many, like in your area, how many lions can you kill? And then like, is it done when there's like 5 lions killed, or is it like 50, or what? I mean, what's?
Yeah. So just like as an example, in my area, which they they stick units together in this kind of. I mean, they do that in elk and deer too, in Colorado too. So, but there's 3 units, and I don't know the exact. I'd have to look. I only focus on my unit 25 because it's the only one that I hunt in. But it's batched together with, I believe, 26 and 34. So 3 average size game management units, pretty darn big areas. And the quota is 7. So in our area, well, not in our area, just in Colorado in general, the night before you hunt, you always have to call in and see if the unit has been closed. They keep track of the quota. And then you have to, when you kill one, you got to bring it in and have it checked, and then they take it off the quota at that point.
7 toms or 7 females?
Or 7 lions, total. Period.
Okay.
Yep, and there's some interesting, I don't know the exact science on it, and it's kind of on my list to really, read about and know what the truth is, but there's some discussion that the tight quotas have maybe bumped up the lion population a whole lot because guys are holding out for toms, so they're turning out a ton of females. They're not, nobody's killing females, they're just killing big toms, and those big toms were actually part of their biology is they run around and kill kittens off of females. So when you're killing all the big mature toms, you kind of have a distortive thing in the population. I've heard that. I can't back it up with a ton of science, but it makes sense, and it sure seems to me like there's a lot of lions around.
Yeah, I mean, did you guys out when you're deer and elk hunting? How many did you guys see? Either riding in or walking here and there or glassing? I mean, handful of them seen this year?
Yeah, and I don't know your experience with them. I think we've actually chatted about it, and you've actually glassed quite a few of them up, right?
Yeah, I think I'm at 43.
Yeah, I mean, but honestly, Jay, you're like, that's an extreme anomaly.
Yeah,
right.
And granted, 75% of those or more are in Mexico where they're really thick, and we're spending a lot of time glassing for deer and up on high points. So I mean, yeah, it's and I can't tell you that some of those aren't some of the same lions, but we've tried to keep track of them just because it's I think one time when we got to like 17 or 18, Dar and I were like, let's start counting these suckers. And but go ahead, yeah.
So this year, and I was just while you're talking, I was listening, but I was also thinking in my mind what I saw this year physically, and just to put it in perspective for people. I mean, I know lots of guys that hunt, good lion habitat, and they might see one lion every decade. You know what I mean? Like if you're not hunting them, you're hunting deer and elk, and you run into lions on the trail or whatever. It's pretty rare. They're smart. They don't. Yeah. They keep themselves hidden. I'm sure they're always watching us. But this year, I saw 5 different lions, 3 on the road, and then I saw one. I was just looking at deer after 4th season, and then I saw one recently. I glassed up, and then in terms of dogs, I've seen. The dog deal I've seen a lot. You get them in trees, so that's kind of a different deal. And then I want to say I had 2 different sightings from hunters. When I say those type of numbers to biologists, guys who manage game, the fish and game guys, like they're like, holy crap, that's a lot. Yeah. And in my just life experience with them, it is. I mean, I've gone years where I haven't seen one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're around, and they're in, again, like the bears. I mean, watching them when you glass them up is the coolest. I mean, they're cool.
That tail never stops moving, does it?
No, yeah, they just they bounce around. And if you see one that's active, I had one recently. I saw him, and then he vanished. You know how they do. He immediately disappeared. And then I saw him much closer to me, and he just popped up on a log like a down aspen, just like a big, giant house cat. I just see his tail way up in the air, and he's just got his head up, and he's looking at me. And then he pops off the log, vanishes, and then I see him maybe 200 yards further away, does the same thing. He's on to me the whole time, but he's just like a big house cat,
Yeah, he's just looking at you, his piercing eyes.
Yeah, just looking straight through your soul.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's on the agenda with the Grays? You've got a kid on the way. I know your wife's a skier. Are you much of a skier? Are you waxing the skis and getting ready to go skiing, or what?
I wish. I mean, today was like a big powder day, but I just got, I'm just catching up on all the outfitting stuff. You've seen on my Instagram, and we've chatted about it before. I'm trying to do some hunts in BC in 2017, so I've been working on some business stuff on that front and just kind of keeping busy.
Tell me about
that.
I saw you've got some mountain goat hunts that you're doing with a partner or something up in BC. It looks like.
Yeah, so it's the same guy that I'm also going to do some spring bear hunts with. I went up. We discussed it. I went up and explored BC on several trips in 2016. This particular deal, I thought it was a great deal, and it worked with a lot of the type of clientele that I already have here. They're pretty accessible hunts. You fly into Vancouver, which every big city in the U.S. you can get direct flights there, and then you can be hunting the next day. It's like a 5-6 hour drive. And then for me, it works well because I can do the spring bear thing up there, which is in my off season. And then the goats, I've guided and hunted goats here quite a bit. And the goat deal, have you ever thought about? Have you ever hunted them before, Jay?
I haven't.
Yeah, I mean, is it on your bucket list at all?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're an awesome animal. I mean, when I have seen them and been around them. Most of the time is, they're when I'm spending the summers in Colorado and seeing them and such. They're really neat animals. Yeah,
they're one of my favorite things to hunt for a bunch of reasons. The main one is what you're getting to. Is they're just unique.
I'm a member of the Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance as well.
Nice, me too. And those guys, I think he's doing a good job. I get his newsletter and everything, so yeah. I applaud him for putting that together. It's Peter, right?
Yeah, Peter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had him on the podcast. He was really good. Peter Munich, good guy with the Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance. But I've never hunted goats, but that's a good plug for him. Uh,
Yeah,
I think it's 30 or 40 bucks a year, and that money goes to really, really good cause for goats. And someday I will hunt them, so I figure I'm gonna join the alliance and support them.
yeah, no, and it's a good deal because they're like a really sensitive species that people don't understand. I mean, they're sensitive in a different way that sheep are. I know it sounds like just following your Instagram that you guys have some sheep issues going on. But goats are sensitive in a different way in the sense that they're just small populations and they're really localized little, almost like families. And mismanagement of them can cause a lot of problems. So I'm glad that the guys put together an organization to address some of that stuff. And I think you find out that there's a lot of guys out there that are obsessed with goats. So good. It's a good deal, and I think everybody should sign up for it. But anyways, I got off track on it, and what I was going to say is that when I looked at a place to do goat hunts outside of Colorado, the problem with Colorado, obviously, from a guide outfitter perspective, is that the tags are just, it takes guys years, decades to get the tags. But in BC or anywhere else, Alaska even, there's a huge variation in how to actually get in, where you're going to hunt them. There's lots of places where the majority of goat hunts, you're taking float planes in, multiple float planes in, or you're going on roads, or you're taking boats that are all susceptible to massive scheduling issues. And that can be part of the adventure, but I didn't really want that to be an issue. So I found some guys that have really quality goats, and they're not easy hunts at all because no goat hunt is, but the logistics getting in there is. So that was what I was kind of looking for, and I got going, if that makes sense. Sorry for the long-winded answer, Jay.
No, it's all good stuff, for sure. I know you've always loved those goats, and I know you enjoy doing them in Colorado, so I'm glad you're going to get a chance to get to do some of that. What time of year will you be hunting those?
So their seasons are mostly in September and then the first week of October. So similar to our goat seasons. It works out for me because I can go up there and be a part of that process in between the seasons here. And for the next few years, we got like 3 weeks between the end of archery rifle and then archery elk and then the rifle seasons. So it gives me some time to go up there. In the bear stuff in the area, it's totally out of the season. It's like May, June.
And with another mouth to feed in the Gray household, your wife probably said, "You better find a couple more gigs there, Mr. Cliff."
Yeah, you got to keep busy. And then I think it gets to what you were saying. Like, it's not all about business. Part of this is like maintaining your passion for it, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have some variety. And I think that's not just outfitting. It's probably any entrepreneurial endeavor, right?
For sure. For sure, man. Well, it's been great having you on the podcast, as always. Do you guys have any winter trips? You go into the sunshine anywhere anytime soon in the next couple months or anything? Or are you gonna stay pretty close to home?
Oh, me personally, no. We're taking it easy,
Yeah.
enjoying a little time off from the outfitting season. So keeping it simple, But
Gotcha.
so,
All right,
but
man.
you got some Coos deer hunts coming up, and that'll keep you traveling, huh?
Yeah, I'm excited. Kind of shifting here from sheep season. My archery hunter. Well, I had a guy that had a 15D tag, which is up by Kingman, and those are Nelson eye sheep. And Dar and I have had some great success hunting those Nelson eye, and they're the flared out rams as opposed to the Mexicana that are kind of tighter to their face. And pneumonia has hit our herd, and in a handful of our northwest units there, we've had anywhere from a 50 to 80% death loss so far, and so it was definitely in 15D. I'm going to say there's at least a 50% loss for sure right now. I was seeing way less sheep this season than I usually do in years past, and I think they flew 580 sheep the last 3 years, roughly in the surveys, and this year they flew 203. So that's like a two-thirds difference. But I'd say a 50 to 60% loss so far that I noticed.
Yeah.
Um,
No, probably no fertility. You
yeah,
got
I
no
mean,
lambs.
zero
Yep.
lambs. The older age class, they didn't fly a single class four in the helicopter. The nice thing is, my hunter, we did find a 10-year-old ram, and he killed him and shot him with his bow. He had told me when he booked the hunt, he said, I want to shoot a ram with my bow. I'm not even bringing a rifle. I want to shoot a Pope and Young minimum, and I thought it was 140 minimum, but I guess it's like 125. And his number one, he said, I want to shoot a mature ram. So it was the oldest ram we saw, and a 10-year-old ram uh, for Nelson eyes in that region three. Typically, you maybe see one 10-year-old a year between all those units. So it felt pretty good about finding that 10-year-old ram, especially with, they say the pneumonia afflicts the young and the old first.
Yeah.
And all the rams that had been checked in had pneumonia. They did the swab on our ram; it had pneumonia. So
Yep.
it's pretty heartbreaking, but it's kind of a reality with sheep. They, like you said, they are kind of a finicky animal, and yeah, so anyway, I transitioned. Now I'm kind of going into Coos deer mode in Mexico. We've got our first trip December 27th through January 4th. We've got a group of 5 guys, and then we've got January 15th through the 23rd, our Rut Hunt. Typically, we do 2 hunts back-to-back, 7-day hunts, 7 full hunting days, but this year we had 2 fathers wanted to take their sons hunting and take them, I think they're in their teens, hunting during Christmas break. So we're going to go a little bit early this year and then do our Rut Hunt the 15th through the 23rd. And I've got, I don't know, 25 or so kind of DIY guys that are just going on leases that we have for Coos deer. So yeah, it's always this Coos deer in Mexico. I think the first year I went down, I believe, was 1999. So I guess this will be my 18th season, and just something I always look forward to. We love those Coos deer. So yeah, it's a great time of year. It's great time of year. Always good to be a hunter, and definitely a hunt we just really enjoy the heck out of. So yeah, that's what I
Yeah. No,
recommend.
it sounds like one of those deals that people get a bug for, right?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things until you hunt them, you think, why would you hunt those little deer? And then almost every single hunter that's come down, we get a lot of repeat customers. But as soon as they see their first big, nice, mature Coos deer rutting around or something, they're just hooked. And when you get those, 110-inch bucks, but they're on a 100-pound frame. I've
Yeah.
had guys that are from Iowa, that have 300-pound deer and shoot, 160, 170-inch bucks, and they say these Coos deer look bigger, just proportion wise.
Yeah. No, I got you. Sure. Yeah, but it's also another adventure, right? You're going to
Oh yeah,
Mexico, you do
oh
things,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I can see why people get that bug. But yeah, no, Jay, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Yeah, for sure. Give you a chance to let people know how they can contact you. And I guess the draws for Colorado won't be due till what, about April, so they've got some time. But yeah, if you're interested in a hunt, give Cliff a call. Cliff, where can they find you?
They can. The best is just the website ftguides.com or Flat Tops Wilderness Guides. Gets to the same spot, and then Instagram is pretty good way also, and that's as you said before at Cliff GRY. But yeah, those are both best. You're welcome to email me, call me. All that stuff's on the website. And yeah, it's kind of. We're already. It seems like booking season's hitting early this year. Been busy on that already. So, so yeah, give me a holler if you have interest.
And just to be clear, a lot of your hunts are very easy draws and or over the counter where you can just buy tags straight up, correct?
Yeah, the majority of it is. I've got some deer hunts that are higher point higher point deals, but the majority of my stuff is all easy to draw or over the counter.
Perfect, man. Well, tell everyone in your family hello, and I'll be chatting at you. And yeah, have fun chasing those lions while you can.
All right, thanks a lot, Jay.
All right, buddy.